I want to tell you about what we think is going to happen next in technology in wearables for health and well-being. So today, we're thinking about wearable technology being able to provide us with greater insights into our health, better prediction rather than reactive information. So to help us guide our lives in a way, giving us the information to, for example, improve our diets, our exercise, etc., and land up leading a healthier, more energetic life and avoiding as much as possible getting sick. But if we were to get sick, wearable technology has the potential to predict before you maybe even have any symptoms that you're poorly. And the benefit of that, of course, is that if you get diagnosed early, then in a lot of situations, your outcome can be much better, and the healthcare system will end up spending less money on you to get you well again. So for the patient, round-the-clock monitoring with these type of devices basically can improve the management of your health, can make you make better lifestyle choices, optimize your diet, and basically make you feel better through the day and enhance your performance. For the healthcare provider, more efficient treatment comes from this, earlier detection of diseases, deeper understanding of physiology, and reduced expenses and resources. So the key to it is better information. And it's interesting in Izzy's presentation that she looked at the Whoop and she looked at the Oura Ring, and we talked about the Apple Watch earlier, etc. These devices, in terms of measuring your health, have all the same technology in them. That if you want to measure your heart rate, you'll look on the back of your wearable and you'll see a little green LED flashing. And the way that that works is that the green light going into your skin it happens to be the wavelength of light that's heavily absorbed by the hemoglobin in your blood. And as your blood vessels expand and contract, then the optical path the light's going through, back out and being detected, that optical path, the amount of hemoglobin in that optical path is expanding and contracting, and that's how you get a pulse signal. And then you also see some of these devices also have a red LED. And accompanying that red LED is something you can't see, which is an infrared LED. And at these two wavelengths, we can measure the difference in the color of your blood. And that color is dominated by hemoglobin. And the color of oxygenated hemoglobin is different to the color of unoxygenated hemoglobin. And so by measuring that color difference, if you like, you think of blood in your veins as blue and brighter red in your arteries, well, there is a sort of kind of truth to that. And so that use of LEDs allows you to measure the ratio between those LEDs, which is the ratio of the oxygenated to unoxygenated hemoglobin in your blood. And so any of you who've got an Apple Watch or Garmin or many of these devices see those functions. When it comes to measuring your skin temperature, it's just a thermistor sitting on your skin. There's no particular technology there. But it's interesting that Whoop, Garmin, everybody is using this technology, and it's pretty rudimentary. It's pretty basic. So it has to beg the question whether there is something much more powerful that you could wear on your wrist, and something that could be still manufactured and produced inexpensively and be made available to everybody. So this idea of improving our health substantially, helping us live more healthy lives, helping our health providers diagnose diseases earlier, etc. These ideas and how they're coming to us as people, as consumers, is coming from two angles. One, it's coming from the consumer devices. So these are devices like a Whoop or a Garmin or an Apple or an Oura Ring. but it's also coming from the medical device world, which is quite different. But these two universes are coming at us to monitor our health on a continuous basis. The consumer device companies are coming at this by basically, they've given you something that happens to, measure your steps. That's just an accelerometer in your device, by the way. If it's an Apple Watch or a Samsung, it happens to be a telephone as well, and tell you your email. So it's doing a lot of things. So the push is to put more functionality into those devices to make them more useful and profound health and medical devices. So that's coming at it from the consumer direction. From the healthcare direction, a lot of very sophisticated monitoring and diagnostic technology exists within medical clinics, hospitals, et cetera, in a highly regulated and very conservative environment. But the companies making those kind of products want to fight their way out of that environment and get into your home and be able to allow you to monitor your health with that level of sophistication on a continuous basis in a very cost-effective way. So how are those companies getting to you? Well, if you go to your doctor, or you go to a clinic, or you go to the hospital and go on a journey in the hospital, then in all likelihood in the future, you will go home with a device from one of these companies. And that's how they'll continue to monitor you, maybe post-operative surgery, better to send you home a bit earlier, and the hospital can continue to monitor you while you're at home. But that device is now with you, and it's the vision of those medtech companies that device will continue with you, and it will sit there in the background in a nice convenient format, sitting on your body somewhere, continually monitoring you and looking after you and referring to, how shall we put it, a doctor in the cloud who's looking at your data and interpreting it. So, what's at the center of all this? Well, Rockley Photonics is at the center of all this. So we are working with all the major consumer device companies, and we're working with the major medical device companies. And so what's needed here is a vastly more powerful method of monitoring your health, not just a few LEDs and a temperature sensor and an accelerometer, but something that's akin to a clinical laboratory instrument that would analyze a lot of different things. So in the case of Rockley, we were inspired by what has been achieved with very simple LED technology to measure your heart rate and to measure your blood oxygen, for example. But what if we created, the technique, if you like, for measuring your blood oxygen is very simply a 2-wavelength spectrometer. What if we built a much, much, much more powerful spectrometer? And instead of using LEDs, we used laser technology. And we were able to create a chip with many, many lasers at power levels harmless to your skin, streaming light into your skin and looking at the way that light scattered back from your skin in the same way that the LEDs work, but with maybe 1 million times the performance. Well, it turns out that in a broad spectral range, a broad range of colors that we call the short wavelength infrared spectrum, there is a large amount of information that can be gained with a powerful instrument. And along the journey, Rockley, which set out in 2013 to develop a chip technology for many applications, a photonic chip technology, an optical chip technology, a brand new semiconductor manufacturing process, so a pretty ambitious objective, that's what we set out to do. But along the way, we bought a company that really understood the measurement science of non-invasive, short wavelength, infrared, diffuse reflection spectroscopy, which is shining light into your skin and looking at what comes back. And that company had developed all of the measurement science, but on a benchtop instrument that cost about $100,000. And this instrument could do an extraordinary range of things, all the way from measuring your core body temperature from an extremity to measuring blood glucose levels. The challenge was that that instrument in itself really wasn't that useful, expensive and cumbersome. But what if we could miniaturize that instrument onto a chip without the detriment of performance? And so we started doing that a few years after we started the company in 2013. We started to use our very advanced photonic semiconductor technology to do this, and we were able to achieve this objective in around about 2019. And since that time, we've been taking this semiconductor production process into production, and we've been working with both the consumer device customers and building our own wearable, which is not, in a sense, a smartwatch. It's not a telephone, etc. It's a device dedicated to sit in the background and monitor your health, and to be used initially in a very profound way by medical companies. So when you look at what we had to put together to be able to do all of this, this slide kind of illustrates it. So the basis of what we had to do was start right from the beginning and develop a complete semiconductor manufacturing technology. And when we think about semiconductor technology, we think about companies like Intel and Taiwan Semiconductors, etc. And about half of the semiconductor industry today is about the digital processing devices in all of your consumer products and your cars, etc. These devices they're made with a process called CMOS, and they're about half of the market. But the other half of the semiconductor market is a lot of weird and wonderful and different technologies, and in their own right, these processes can be as complex as the leading processing technology that you see in your consumer devices. So we had to develop, with hundreds of millions of dollars, which our investors helped us with, we had to develop this fundamental technology, a technology that will take other people, even if they had the manual, will take them many, many years to get working and to get it qualified in a production ecosystem. And just to go along with the Aura ring, that we actually developed a significant portion of this initially in Finland, in the National Research Institute of Finland called VTT, before transferring it out into a foundry production ecosystem. So at the heart of what we do is this process. Then on top of that, we had to design the chips, what we call a spectrophotometer chip. This is the instrument chip. Then we had to design the microelectronics that you wrap around that, an ASIC that wraps around that to control the chip. Then we had to build that into devices, so this is what we call our pre-alpha. And then we had to go out and do a whole load of human studies. So the sort of things that we can measure, for example, are core body temperature. So how did we train the device to measure core body temperature from your wrist? Not your skin temperature, but your core body temperature. And this is what you need, Izzy, is your core body temperature. Yeah. And then that maps to, for example, the menstrual cycle extremely accurately. And to do this, we had to, the device looks into your skin, and actually we measure spectroscopically the characteristics of water and how water's absorption changes with temperature. And we get a gradient of temperature into your skin. So the gradient and the absolute temperature correlate to your core body temperature. So how do we train the device? We made people swallow a transmitter tablet. And I'm still waiting to get these tablets back. Nobody's returned them. They swallowed the transmitter tablet, and then we stuck them in a hot tub, and we heated them up. And the transmitter tablet is transmitting their core body temperature. There's a temperature sensor on it. And so we correlated what we measure to that device. And in fact, we can measure your core body temperature more accurately on your wrist than you can if you put something in your ear or on your forehead or stick it in your mouth, which is quite remarkable. Then hydration. So spectroscopically, you're mostly water, well, you're 60% water. So we measure the absorption of water and collagen and lipids in your skin. And that ratio tells us your hydration level. And when we think about health, and we're always talking about how we better have a drink of water, your whole physiology, the way all the organs in your body work, everything works, how you stay healthy, it is vital that you remain correctly hydrated. And people who are well can tolerate a certain amount of dehydration or overhydration, but people who are poorly, let's say a diabetic, somebody suffering from a chronic disorder, then hydration can mean the difference between feeling well and feeling really, really unwell, and in certain cases actually being life-threatening. Then we go on to blood pressure, measuring blood pressure non-invasively without a cuff. And the way that we do that is that the laser technology allows us to measure blood flow incredibly accurately. So we get this absolutely beautiful signal of your heartbeat, and it correlates perfectly to the ECG signal that you could take off your chest with electrodes. And so this signal has a vast amount of information in it, and one piece of that information is that it correlates to your blood pressure. And then you go on to things like metabolites, glucose as a metabolite, lactate. Lactate, we all think of lactate in terms of exercise and meeting your lactate limit, but also elevated lactate when you're not exercising is usually a sure sign that you've got blood poisoning, that you've got sepsis. So we measure these because the signal that we receive has got little ripples in the signal, and we can extract those ripples are all constituted by the different, basically predominant metabolites that are in the interstitial fluids in the surface of your skin. So we had to do all of these trials. We heat people up, we make people sweat a lot and lose a lot of weight, we feed them sugary drinks and all these sort of things. And these are all human studies that are done under the auspices of something called the IRB, which is governed by the FDA in the US. We do all of this in our facility in California. And so we built these algorithms. But then we thought, how do we go to market with all of this? And we created a platform that basically connects all this information through a gateway. It can be your phone or an iPad or anything, and takes it into the cloud. We have got a phenomenal AI team, and that AI team and cloud team built a platform, and that platform is available for everybody. So this is my startup idea for everybody this evening. If you want to start a femtech company, then essentially we're going to give you, with this technology, we're going to give you that core body temperature accurately. And so you can go off and build on top of this platform, your menstrual cycle app, or if you're looking after diabetics, you can basically take all these biomarkers and you can track these biomarkers over time and develop an algorithm that basically guides the management of that individual's diabetes better. The applications just go on and on and on. They're kind of infinite. And where the industry today is, there is no technology differentiation in terms of sensing. This gives an extraordinary level of technology differentiation. So our intention is to, and we've already done it, is to open that up so people can build applications on top of the technology and apply it to anything that you can think of in terms of health and wellness, fitness, etc. So this is the biomarkers that we're talking about, and that's not the limit. This isn't just a sensor, this is an instrument, and you just train it to these particular biomarkers. Over on the left-hand side, you see the back of our own wearable that goes into volume production in the fourth quarter. If you read about the company, you'll find that our customers include Apple on the consumer side, and on the medtech side, Medtronic, which is the world's largest medical device company, and many other companies that we have yet to announce. If we look at the size of the business part, this actually contains, this is just an example reference design, this contains basically everything that you see in the back of a Whoop or an Apple Watch or anything like that in terms of the LEDs. We still use the LEDs for measuring your blood oxygen. but it also contains the spectrophotometer, which basically collects all this additional information. And in the example that we see here, you can see these little holes here, actually little windows, and each one is doing a particular task in terms of light coming out and light being received back again. Very quiet audience. Fascinating. So anyway, I think to sum it up, I mean, we do think that continuous health monitoring is expected to define the next generation of wearable devices, and we've talked about and gone through the history. We do believe that basically health and wellness is the driver of wearable devices, and that we believe the next generations of wearable devices will completely transform the healthcare system. Thank you.